Auburn football has now officially appeared at SEC Media Days. We have got commentary from Coach Hugh Freeze as well as the players that were in attendance. Let's focus on talking about what we heard and what we can take away from it. This is your Auburn football SEC Media Days 2024 report. Let's get into that right now. War Eagle Auburn family and a special War Eagle, and welcome to those of you that consider yourselves part of our E2C network family. Thank you so much for joining us. Whether you're watching live or in the replay, we appreciate you being here, hanging out with us, and spending some time being a part of our little family within the Auburn family. On today's live stream, we have got a breakdown for you, a reaction stream of Auburn football at SEC Media Days 2024. We have been waiting all week for this day to arrive throughout the week-long event, kicking off SEC football, and we now have comments from Coach Hugh Freeze, which will be the main focus of our discussion today, but also commentary from coaches. We can even talk a little bit about some discussion that was had about Auburn throughout the week. This is what we want to do on this stream, is focus on that. So as you're coming into the stream, and even if you're on the replay, a couple things you could do for us: smash the like button if you enjoy this type of content, subscribe if you haven't, and obviously let us know your thoughts about what we're talking about, what you heard, because the title of our show today is What Coach Hugh Freeze Said at SEC Media Days. Obviously want to know your impressions about what we're talking about and what was said, whether you're watching live in the live chat or on the replay. You can drop your comments in the comments section. So let's dive into that. The agenda I have for you, pretty open-ended. Here's some guardrails for you. Coach Hugh Freeze spoke in his opening press conference and obviously Q&A session after that, which can be the bulk of what we discuss here. I think that's what most of us were most interested in. I stayed tuned in for a little bit to catch the more intimate, I guess you'd call it, interview on SEC Network with some of the anchors that were there, and took away some things to talk about from that as well. Mainly some reiterations of what was discussed during the press conference and the Q&A session there. But we obviously want to talk about things and just a few things from players. There's going to be more coming out as a lot of our media members that were able to attend are starting to break down, share out some of their sound bites. So there may not be some things included in our commentary here and analysis that you maybe want to talk about. But that's the great thing about the comments section and the live chat. You can share what you'd like to about Auburn at SEC Media Days. So jump into the live chat if there's anything that you'd like to comment on or break down. But let me give you a somewhat of a walkthrough of commentary from Coach Hugh Freeze. I've got it pulled up over here to my right, and we can talk through some of the notes that we took. You can find this on our Twitter account at E2C_network if you want to follow along there, or go see some of the things that we talked about there. General opening statements from Coach Hugh Freeze. He did acknowledge and is very excited about the second straight sellout for Auburn football in season tickets. That's a great testament to the body of work that Coach Hugh Freeze is putting out there and how Auburn fans are responding to it and rewarding him for seeing the trajectory of where the program is heading. There's still a lot of excitement around that. One of the things that he started off talking about, and I believe this is where we get into more of the questions side of things. He was very brief today in his opening statements. Not that you have to be long-winded, but chose to kind of just have some overarching thanks and acknowledgement of his excitement for the year. But one of the quotes, the direct quotes I have from him that I'd like to read for you, is a very short one. Players can sense a chemistry amongst the staff. So this was something that was talked a lot about last season with the coaching staff, with the departures of Ron Roberts at DC, Philip Montgomery as OC. A lot of that was around the DC part of things, that there was not a lot of cohesion and not a lot of continuity there that hadn't naturally developed. Does this mean it was the wrong decision to bring them on at the time? No, but I think this is a clear acknowledgement by Coach Hugh Freeze that not only he is feeling it, but even the players have noted that there seems to be a camaraderie and a cohesion that's much better. The chemistry is much better amongst the coaching staff right now. He is openly acknowledging that now. He does consider the roster having upgraded. That's good to hear. If you note from what a lot of his commentary was last year, talked a lot about he expected things to be, when you come in as a new head coach and there's been some bad times, you got to rebuild. But I think even he was a little bit shocked. And I don't think I'm stepping out there almost putting words in his mouth with pretty much what he was saying there. He also spoke about having to listen a little bit more to coaches and players, having to have high accountability across the board, but with himself. I think last year was a good reset, obviously, for Auburn football in general, but just for everybody that's involved across the board to kind of realize where we are and where we've got to work to. And I think that's what that commentary was related to there. Talked about the critical nature of the 5 straight home games, and he asked the fans to be locked into that and expects them to be. It's a very unique thing. He even joked about how the best weather in Auburn is in October, and we won't see Auburn in October. It's still one of the more frustrating things of the schedule. I even saw someone put out a tweet a little while ago after this talking about how weird Auburn's schedule is. 5 straight home games, 3 on the road, and then you come back for 3 straight home games, and then you're on the road for your last one. Just a very, very, very unique thing. So Coach even acknowledges that a little bit, how odd that is. It spoke a lot about his staff, Dirk and Kelly, the rest of the defensive staff, how much trust he has in them. Obviously, with the speculation around, there wasn't a lot of trust at the very end of things around the defensive staff, that seems to already be there. A lot of people are starting to ask the question, what is your time allotment? Like, what are you spending most of your time on? And he talked about it in a 70-30 split, with, if I understood him correctly, his main focus clearly being on the offense and his 30% being involved in the other aspects, which includes defense, which includes recruiting and stuff like that. But I think as much people have speculated this year, his focus would be more on the field stuff than off the field stuff. And you can understand why after the results on the field last year. But again, there's a lot of context that needs to be discussed within that. Obviously, one of the major topics in the offseason and one of the major topics that everybody's interested in talking about are the freshman wide receiver. And of course, he was asked about that and talked about his excitement about the Freeze 4 and trying not to put a lot of pressure on these guys, and talked about his ability to be able to find NFL wide receiver talent, but also get it to the NFL, whether that be developing, helping them get the tools that they need, just becoming a better overall player. So I think you're kind of seeing that mindset with him as well. A lot of the excitement around Cam Coleman, but the whole Freeze 4, and acknowledging the rest of the group as well, and what they're going to bring to the offense, but the quarterback situation, all of that. Also asked about his offensive lineman in relation to a couple of guys, specifically Percy Lewis and Connor Lew. He continues to talk about Connor Lew as an NFL center already. He's a sophomore, folks. Think about that. And he was getting this commentary from Coach Hugh Freeze last year. Talks about Percy Lewis, sharing a lot of interest with him and how excited he is to have him as an offensive tackle. And he did admit during this that he was not and doesn't consider himself a great portal recruiter. Now, I think that's one of those commentary pieces from this press conference, if you watched it, or if you just hear me or someone else talk about it, that can be taken a little out of context if you don't read the whole thing or listen to the whole thing. He's trying to be better at it, but he has a desire. He's an old school guy to be able to recruit from the lower ranks and build them up. And frankly, I think even in the transfer portal era, that is something that needs to still be a heavy focus and needs to be the majority of your focus. You got to adapt, and he has expressed how he's willing to do that, talking about earlier about how he needs to listen more and do more introspective, looking at how he can improve as a coach, but opening up about his lack of comfort level with the transfer portal and all of that. And I think that can sometimes be taken a little bit out of context. Let me go ahead and set the record straight with Coach Hugh Freeze, because he has been saying this. The players have said this. Everybody has told you all this. 100%. I'm looking at the camera right now. If you are not on board with Hugh Freeze, yes, but with Peyton Thorne as your starting quarterback, you are going against the players. You're going against the head coach. He is the starting quarterback. He has the stamp of approval. Reiterated that, talking about Thorne being proven at the Power 5 level. Most of you will say, well, he didn't have a great year last year at the Power 5. Of course. Understandable. We all saw that out there. But again, your head coach has told you he is the starting quarterback yet again. Talks about the wide receivers again being a lot of help there, and he sees a lot more confidence in Thorne in year 2, which is a common theme out there if you've never looked at some of the stats with transfer portal quarterbacks in year 2, but also very excited about his quote unquote backups, the rest of the quarterbacks that are in the room. Talked a little bit about the running backs as well, but he was asked specifically about Damari Alston and what he likes about him. First word that came to mind, was straight from him, was leader. And I know that's an overused term, but I also can share that sentiment with what I see about Damari out there and how it talks about him being a vocal leader. Whereas Jarquez is a leader in terms of going out, putting his head down, going to work. And everybody does that. But, being a vocal leader, that's what Damari Alston is, and talks about his involvement, obviously on the field, but off the field too. So I think there's a lot of conversation around, this is my takeaways from that. Obviously, Jarquez being the starter, a lot of excitement about Jeremiah Cobb. And we've had a lot of, talk about Brian Battie and what he's been through, and that was acknowledged here too. But Damari's kind of getting lost in the conversation. And I think there needs to be some respect put on Damari Alston's name. Coach Hugh Freeze obviously thinks so as well. So there's been a lot of commentary this week about Jordan Hare. Good commentary about how formidable it is, how it's cursed from other SEC teams. And Coach obviously acknowledged that and regards it as some of the best out there. He agrees with some of the people. His main concern is wanting to deliver a product that Auburn fans feel is worthy of that consideration. All right, let's skip through a couple of these things again. I'm not going to go through every single thing that we talked about or he talked about in SEC Media Days. You can go to our Twitter X account at E2C/network if you want the majority of it. One of the things I thought was important to talk about was Kent Austin being such a great fundamental quarterback coach and how much comfort. We talked earlier about his comfort level he expressed with his staff now. All these guys in his offensive room, at least, have coached with him at one time. And he said that, so I believe that's 100% correct. And noted, a lot of you will point to Malik Willis, the successes of Coach Hugh Freeze, which was one, but he points to Coach Kent Austin, the quarterback coach now, for the success that Malik had. Obviously Malik himself, but Kent Austin was more so to credit that success and that turnaround for Malik than himself. So it should make you excited about having him in that quarterback coaching role. He did have a really good, I think, we look for every single year one of these overarching good feeling commentaries about Auburn and what it's like, how special it is. He did speak to a quote, "I get to coach here," one of the only schools that's competed for a national title in the last several years and decades, because it's been very few that have actually played for it / won one or competed for it at all. So Auburn being one of those, and there's a sense of gratitude I get across, and "I get to coach here" was the quote that I pulled from him on there, which I think is great to hear. He was also asked about the tight end room, and I think that doesn't need to be lost on Auburn fans, and he broke it down completely across the board. We got some great breakdowns throughout the rooms, whether it was tight ends we're talking about now, quarterbacks, things like that. But he talked about them last. We all know that Rivaldo is Rivaldo. He's a great matchup, he said, flying under the radar, and I agree with that. I think he's not getting enough respect. Luke Deal needs your respect because of what he means to this team as a team guy, but also a contributor on the field. Brandon Frazier being a nice mixture of those, but also the younger tight ends coming along too. So he sounds excited about the tight end room. I guess as a final note, and we'll talk about this in just a second with one other interview he did, but what I walked away from as my big revelation from his press conference was his comfort level with the offensive line and the running game. Expressed a desire for us to run this ball well, but it seemed like I walked away feeling like he felt comfortable saying that was going to needs to be a strength. He hopes is a strength, but he has a lot of positive commentary around that aspect of the game. So to me, that is an excellent sign. And when I talk about giving out record predictions, I get asked that a lot. When are you going to give out your final record prediction? These are the type of things that I'm wanting to hear from the coaches, good or bad, so that I can be better informed about that. So to me, that's one of the things that I will think back to when I'm making that decision of a final record prediction about how he feels about the running game. He also, I guess we can get to that now. Let me pull up my other notes that I had. So we had a commentary from him from the presser Q&A, and then he went and did a sidebar interview with the SEC Network crew, which, by the way, folks, if you have not seen the segment with Cole Kublik and Mr. Acho, I forget his last name, Sam Acho, where there was some questioning of the legitimacy of the Iron Bowl as a rivalry and being better than the Red River rivalry. Y'all want to see somebody with a fire lit underneath them? Go watch Cole Kubik. He was spitting facts on there, and we shared that out on social media. He liked it, so I think he is still fired up about that. But anyway, these notes are from that portion of the interview, and it's very short form here because a lot of this is repeated about his coaches having a comfort level in the offensive room with them. Everyone has coached with him. Reiteration for you all on play calling. That's big commentary. We talked about where his time is going to be spent, and he talked about a 70-30 split with offense being 70-30% everywhere else. Nix is the play caller. This is from him. Ken Austin, the quarterback coach, is going to be heavily involved. Maybe even I heard him say make the decisions on third and longs since he's the quarterback coach and probably going to be doing throwing on a third and long. And then he will be the adjuster and have a voice on the tempo of things. And to me, that sounds like a recipe for success because you do want Coach Hugh Freeze involved heavily. This is his thing. He's an offensive guy, but you've got to build up your offensive coordinator in Derek Nix, and he needs to be the play caller. He needs to know that he has that freedom. You also need support guys around him for those special situations, having Kent Austin in a third and long situation. But the tempo, the adjuster, the checking the box, that will be Hugh Freeze himself. Asked him about a little bit about Coach Saban and not having him there. They're good friends, and joked a little bit about that. That was kind of a funny thing to see there. This was a great question. I felt that I don't know that we've had a direct question and answer from him yet. Who are his coaching influences? He credits Coach Steve Spurrier and Coach Monty Kiffin. And there may have been one more I missed in there, but Steve Spurrier and Monty Kiffin are who he credits for influencing him the most as a coach when he was coming up in the ranks. Now, I'm sure there's other people he would credit with that, but in relation to this question. And when he said that, I kind of thought outside of the attitude, the moxie, I could see it in the Steve Spurrier football aspect of him. So that was a very interesting note. In talking about Peyton some more and him as the quarterback. Let me say it again for the people in the back. Quarterback number one. Get over it. His quote in relation to this question was, "We have to run the football." What does that have to do with Peyton? Just a second. It helps us stay out of third and long situations, but acknowledges that Peyton has to work on the correct decisions, and some of that is probably going to be rectified with having weapons and more options and availability for him to not have to be worried about making the wrong decision. The quarterback situation, the quarterback problem has never been solely about the quarterback for Auburn. It has been about the offensive line, the running game, the wide receivers, and yes, issues with the specific quarterback, whether it was Thorne, whether it was Nix, whether it was Finley, whether it was Ashford. You can keep going on and on. This is a problem that has to be addressed holistically. Your coach has said it. You need to believe it. And if you don't believe it at this point and won't let that go, you're just being ignorant at that point. Have I been direct enough about that? Just trying to be real honest about that. Wide receivers, we talked about it, being careful to put expectations on them in his track record, finding the right ones and getting them to the NFL. Here's another interesting thing. We talked about how good he feels about the run game, the offensive line. He also said, because people are questioning and fans too, the depth of the defensive line, he says he actually feels better about the depth there than he talked about it being one of the areas where he feels really good about the depth. Now, his question is he's not sure where the talent level in that depth is compared to what they have to play to. And that's not questioning that they don't have the ability, just talking about he feels good about what they have, but how good can they be? They don't know yet. So if you're worried about the depth on the defensive front, the interior especially, he said, don't be. Linebackers, he talked about how good he feels about that group and hopes that Austin Keys can stay healthy. Adding in that most recent one, obviously, is going to be a huge help. And Asante is your standard setter there. Now, final notes, questions, commentary about Auburn SEC Media Days here for you guys. Again, if you've got any commentary, any questions, any topics from SEC Media Days that you'd like for us to talk about here on this stream, especially if you're watching live, drop them in now. The big things outside of Coach Hugh Freeze, there is more, as I said, interviews and commentary coming out from quarterback Peyton Thorne, from Keldrick Falk, from Eugene Asante as the hours and days go on after this. But one of the things that was asked of Keldrick Falk was about all the commentary around Jordan-Hare Stadium, and he agrees, obviously, with the assessment of his peers on another team about how formidable Jordan-Hare can be. And that's been probably the biggest thing in relation to Auburn at SEC Media Days, outside of what they've said, the commentary around how formidable it is. And there's been some, I think, concerted efforts to get those sound quotes from our media members there, which is great. But it's always nice to hear that, because that gets everybody fired up every single year. So I hope that you, as Auburn people, Auburn faithful, will use this to motivate you to show up, show out, and be loud. We know that, as Coach Hugh Freeze addressed, this is a second in a year in a row of sellouts and season tickets. So show up, show out, and get excited. Overall assessment of SEC Media Days and what I heard. It's always difficult to try to not put your orange and blue glasses on and read into what you want to hear and to try to be objective here. But I do walk away feeling like there is a cautious optimism about this team in regards to what Coach Hugh Freeze has said at SEC Media Days. Is this me, him, other people calling for there to be a big surprise this year? No. But I think when this year ends, if the feeling that we're getting from Coach Hugh Freeze, everybody else, is what we think it is, this will be a team that has earned back its respect in some facet, in some way, by the end of things. So I walk away feeling, definitely, if there's a scale on negative, positive, and I guess over here the thing's mirrored, but this side for me would be, okay, we'll do negative over here, try to do this right on the screen, positive over here. Obviously the microphone is the middle. I'm going to be, got to get this right on the mirror, I'm going to be probably right here on that scale, not in the middle of the middle portion and the positive side, but just kind of in the middle of that middle, if that makes sense, and then the true middle. And I probably came in right here at the middle. That's where I have shifted to after this commentary today. What does that mean for my record predictions? Well, you can read into that what you want, but we'll see. There's still plenty to discuss, plenty to be had. All right, if you got any final commentary on the live portion that you'd like for me to address, obviously drop that in now, and then we'll start wrapping up the show here in just a second. Let me give you some last-minute things to keep in mind. In case you are a fan or like the Voice of College Football on YouTube, that channel with Mark Rogers, I'll be appearing on that shortly here, so I hope you guys can join us over there. We'll talk a little bit about some of the things we discussed here and anything that he wants to talk about in relation to Auburn and SEC Media Days. Next scheduled live streams for you guys are going to be, obviously, this Sunday evening, the Auburn Experience, episode 86, our main podcast. Don't miss it. We have a great time talking Auburn sports, Auburn culture, Auburn family. Every Sunday night at 9 Eastern time. Lots and lots and lots to talk about this week. Wednesday nights also are our Auburn family night. We will do that live at 8 p.m. Eastern. And there is plenty of content for you guys, whether that be impromptu live streams, videos, content across everything. Every social media platform, every podcast platform, video here on YouTube. Don't miss out. Join in, follow, subscribe, all that good stuff. And we appreciate you being here. Final thoughts. Coach Hugh Freeze seems cautiously optimistic about his team, several areas that maybe were question marks, whether that be quarterback situation, whether that be defensive line depth, running back room. Can it become what we hope it will be, dominant? All of those things, in my takeaways, seem to be pointing in the right direction. Very excited to see what we can glean from the rest of the commentary after SEC Media Days officially ends, which I think technically it's just about done at this point of this live stream. Thank you guys so much for tuning into our show here and being a part of it and being part of our little family within the Auburn family. Until we talk to you again, War Eagle.